Welcome to Clear Empathy with your host, me, Tiffany. Clear Empathy is a place for learning how to be empathic, which is to understand and validate the perspective of others, leading to deeper relational trust and connection. Each webisode offers a different scenario. This week features Will, who agrees to take his cousin Brandon to work in the mornings by 7:30 before arriving to his job at 8 a.m. One morning, Brandon isn't waiting. Will calls and texts, but Brandon doesn't reply. It wasn't like Brandon to miss work. Will waits a while longer, then decides to leave for work without his cousin. During Will's lunch, he calls Brandon. Turns out Brandon overslept, and he asks Will, "Why didn't you knock on the door window to make sure I woke up?" Will is confused. He believes Brandon should have been ready. How can Will respond empathically to his cousin? Remember, empathy is the ability to understand and validate the perspective of others. Here's a few things Will should consider before answering Brandon. Number one, if Brandon has been responsible in the past, perhaps he's right. Another attempt, like knocking on the door, could have been done. Number two, Brandon could have experienced an urgent health matter, like a stroke or heart attack, causing him not to answer. Unanswered calls and texts could be a sign of something more alarming. If Will considered this, perhaps he would have been more investigative. Number three, if knocking on the door is something Brandon would have done for Will, Brandon may feel entitled to the same treatment and offended that Will wasn't more helpful. So, what should Will say? If Will listens to Brandon and then tells him, "I see what you're saying, I could have knocked," this simple form of validation could de escalate Brandon's feelings of offense. Why? Because it's so important to validate the other person's perspective, even if you don't agree. Next, Will could apologize or not. Will wasn't exactly wrong. He just didn't do for Brandon what Brandon believes he would have done for Will. This is a good lesson for Brandon because he can't expect people to think and do as he would, though he makes a good point about knocking on the door as a last resort effort. Brandon should apologize for oversleeping. He was irresponsible, and it's okay for Will to remind Brandon that while he's providing Brandon a favor, this favor shouldn't jeopardize his job. If you find yourself in a similar situation, you may ask yourself, is this relationship worth saving? And if so, how can I save it? Empathy can help. It allows for tough conversations to be had, but not at the expense of ending the relationship. This is another illustration of empathy made clear. Visit clearempathy.com for more. See you soon.